Hello everyone, we are moving to the 8th round of the Tata Steel Masters Tournament of 2024, and now we'll look at a game between Alireza Firouzja and the world champion Liren. Firouzja has the white pieces and he started with d4, knight 6, c4, e6, knight to f3 and d5. So we've reached the queen's gambit, declined variation, knight c3 and c5. And with e3 we are in the semi-Tarrasch system. Knight c6, a3, and d takes c4. Usually black waits for the light square bishop to be developed before playing that move so that white has to waste a tempo, but after bishop into c4, a6 immediately, and we'll push the bishop back with b5. Bishop a2 and b5. Queen c2, c takes d4, e takes d4, and bishop b7. d5. White is thinking that I have an isolated queen pawn which will be a target, so let me liquidate that and create a weakness in black's camp. E takes and bishop g5. Bishop e7 and rook d1. d4. Strictly speaking, that's not needed at the moment. You could simply castle. But white castles here because the pawn anyway is pinned because the rook is opposite the queen, and now black castles. Rook fe1 and b4. Of course, if you capture the knight into b4, will pick up that bishop for knight. So bishop b1 here, g6, preventing any threats on h7. An interesting move, rook into e7. Well, of course, you can't capture with the queen because knight d5 will be very deadly. So knight into e7, and we see that that knight is hanging. But before bishop into f6, simply rook into d4, pick up that pawn, attack the queen, and here knight ed5 is the correct way to play this. So if knight into d5, then simply bishop into d5, and black is perfectly happy here, even slightly better. So knight e4 is the way to go to put pressure, but queen e7, a takes b4 and rook ac8, queen d1 and rook fd8, putting pressure that way. So if queen e1, then rook e8. So not allowing any rook into d5 and then knight into f6 ideas by white, and this is balanced. White has a pawn for the exchange and it's playable for both sides. But after rook into d4, Liren blundered and he played queen c7. Can you spot the move? How to take advantage? It's knight e4. And we see that the f6 knight is undefended and the knight is threatening to capture it with check, and the queen on c7 is also hanging. So after queen into c2, there's knight into f6 check, king g7 and bishop into c2. And white has two minor pieces for the rook, which is more than enough to win. Rook ac8, knight to g4. Well, you can't capture the rook on the bishop on c2 because bishop to f6 followed by knight h6 would be checkmate. So knight g8 first, preventing that. The knight was also hanging. Bishop to b3 now, and bishop takes a3, b takes a3, and rook c3. Rook to b4, defending and attacking. Bishop takes f3, g takes f3, and rook takes f3. White has given up a pawn, but there are no back rank weaknesses anymore. Knight to e3, h6. But bishop d1, and the rook is actually trapped on f3. So rook into f2, bishop takes h6, knight into h6, and king into f2. White is simply a piece up now. There is no question of white winning this game. Rook d8, king e2. Rook d6, bishop b3. Rook f6, a4. Rook to c6, bishop to c4. Slowly but surely, white is making some progress. f5 now, and rook b7 check. King to f6, and rook h7. Knight to g4, knight takes, f takes, bishop d3, putting pressure on g6, and rook b6. Rook to a7, rook b2 check. King a3, rook into h2, rook into a6 check, king to e5, and rook a5 check. King f6 and simply king f4, covering g3 and not allowing any pawn pushes. and it was here where the world champion Liren resigned. So a wonderful victory for Firouzja when he capitalized on that mistake with a stealth attack. Queen c7, we can show it again in a knight e4. This is a wonderful position to happen. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon for the next game.